Okay, let's unpack this. It's Memorial Day, the unofficial start of summer.
Yeah. And for baseball fans, it always feels like the first real checkpoint of the season.
Exactly. The dust starts to settle. Things feel a bit more significant. What we see in the standings now, it just feels different than back in April.
Absolutely. And, the data actually backs that up. Elias Sports Bureau says, in the wild card era, so since 95, but skipping 2020.
Right, the short season.
Yeah. 59% of teams holding first place alone on June 1st. They went on to win their division.
Almost 60%. So, yeah, not a lock, but what we're seeing definitely starts to carry some real weight.
For sure.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We've gathered insights from ESPN's MLB experts, people who've been really digging into the standings at this point. Our mission here is basically to pull out the key takeaways, maybe some surprising facts, the playoff predictions, to get you a sharp understanding of where the 2025 season stands right now.
Right. We're taking all that expert analysis and trying to boil it down into a clear picture for you at this Memorial Day mark.
Okay, so let's dive in. Looking at all that analysis, what's the very first thing that just leaps out? Or maybe sinks in?
Definitely more sinking than leaping.
Yeah.
The most striking thing, honestly, is just how extreme things are at the bottom, specifically the Colorado Rockies.
Right. It's historically bad, like really bad.
Historically bad almost feels like.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't capture it when you see the numbers. Their run differential is already minus 171.
Yeah, that negative 171. And run differential, just to clarify, is simply runs scored minus runs allowed.
Dude, they're getting hammered.
Pretty much every game, yeah. The experts figure they're on pace to finish more than 50 games behind the fourth-place team in their division.
Wait, not first place. 50 games behind the team right above them in the basement.
Exactly. It's staggering.
Yeah.
And they're giving up almost 2 runs for every single run they score. Just brutal. It really is.
Yeah.
What's kind of wild, though, as the analysis points out, is their home attendance. They're 10th in baseball per game.
Yeah. Even though they're dead last in their own division for attendance, people are still showing up in Denver.
Guess it speaks to that fan base connection.
It must. But the experts, they don't hold back on comparing the on-field product.
Oh, yeah. What are they saying?
Things like they make the 2024 White Sox look like the 98 Yankees.
Ooh.
Or like the ending to Game of Thrones.
Okay, wow. Harsh.
Or even like Shaquille O'Neal shooting free throws. Just, yeah.
Those really paint a picture.
They do. And look, technically they're better than the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, right? The 20-134 team.
Okay, small comfort.
Very small. Because later on, the experts seriously ask if the Rockies might actually shatter the modern record for losses.
Yeah.
The 121 the White Sox set just last season.
Shatter it. Good grief.
Yeah, that's the kind of territory we're talking about. Unprecedented stuff.
Okay, so the basement is bleak. Historically bleak.
Yeah.
Are there other big disappointments the experts are highlighting? Maybe less extreme, but still notable?
Yes, definitely. There seems to be a pretty strong consensus pick for the biggest overall disappointment so far.
Who's that?
The Baltimore Orioles.
The Orioles. Wow. That feels really shocking. I mean, 101 wins 2 years ago, 91 last year. They had high hopes, right?
Huge hopes. And now, last place in the AL East.
Last place. How?
Well, the analysis points out that even if you were kind of skeptical about their pitching coming into the season, which some people were,
Sure.
you expected that lineup, with Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, all that young talent. You expected them to hit enough to stay competitive.
If they just haven't produced.
Pretty much a shocking lack of production from those key guys.
Yeah. And what's the fallout from that? Like, big picture.
Well, the experts are saying that the idea of the Orioles actually trading players at the deadline, something that seemed like unthinkable a few months ago, it's now a real possibility. They're even mentioning names like Cedric Mullins, maybe Ryan O'Hearn as guys who could be moved.
Wow, because they're just so far out of it.
Their playoff odds, according to Fangraphs simulations, are down to 1.6%.
1.6%. Yikes. After winning 90-plus last year.
Exactly. And get this, they're only just barely ahead of the White Sox for the worst record in the AL overall. And Chicago's run differential is actually much better than Baltimore's.
So it's not just bad luck for the O's.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
The core issue the experts see is that run prevention has just totally collapsed. Those pitching concerns people had, they've definitely come true, unfortunately.
Okay. Any other specific disappointments getting called out?
Yeah, one expert specifically pointed to the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen.
Ah, the D-backs. They're supposed to be pretty good, right? Sitting around .500 now.
Exactly. Right at .500 on Memorial Day, which feels like they're underachieving. They signed Corbin Burns. Corbin Carroll emerged as a star. They seemed prime.
So the bullpen's the weak link.
According to this analysis, yeah. Big time. It ranks way down, 26th in baseball, with a really ugly 5.24 ERA.
Oof, 5.24. And ERA, just for folks listening, that's average earned runs allowed per 9 innings. So yeah, that's high.
It's very high. And the experts note, sure, injuries haven't helped. Guys like A.J. Puck, Justin Martinez being out, Joe Mantiply got demoted.
Right.
But what makes it sting even more is that the D-backs have actually had the most save opportunities in all of baseball.
Most chances to close out a game.
Exactly. A save opportunity, that's when a reliever comes in with the lead, usually late, in a spot where they can finish the game and earn a save.
Gotcha.
So Arizona's in these close games constantly, games where a good bullpen makes all the difference, but their guys just haven't been able to lock it down. It really magnifies how bad the bullpen's been.
So they're hoping for what? Kendall Graveman comes back healthy, or they make a trade in July?
Pretty much. That seems to be the hope mentioned, yeah.
Right.
Find a fix somehow.
Okay, so we've hit the lows, the disappointments. Let's flip it. What about the playoff picture? What's the expert consensus looking like in the National League right now?
Well, the NLL picture, according to the experts, feels actually quite a bit clearer at the top compared to the AL.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the general feeling is that 5 of the 6 teams currently holding playoff spots, they'll probably still be there come October.
5 out of 6. Okay, so which teams are feeling solid?
The analysis points to the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Cubs, and the Mets. Those 4 are seen as pretty likely to stay in the mix based on how they're playing and, their underlying numbers.
Right, so if 5 stay in, 1 drops out. Who do the experts think is most likely to fall out of that current group? And who's pushing to get in?
The team seen as maybe most likely to slip is the San Francisco Giants. They've been playing pretty well lately, but there are questions about our overall depth and if they can keep it up for 162 games.
Okay. And the challengers. Who's expected to make a run?
The teams expected to really factor in are the Atlanta Braves, the San Diego Padres, and, the Arizona Diamondbacks again.
Ah, interesting. Despite the bullpen issues for Arizona, what are the reasons for those 3?
Well, for the Braves, it's just that incredible roster depth, right? Plus the expectation they get even stronger when Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider eventually get back.
Sure, big names there.
For the Padres, their GM, A.J. Preller, he's known for being super aggressive at the deadline. So the expectation is they'll add pieces, probably to the lineup.
Makes sense.
And the D-backs, despite the bullpen woes, that lineup can really hit. It's powerful enough that the experts think it could carry them into contention, maybe if the bullpen just gets slightly better or they find help.
So the NL wildcard race sounds like it could get pretty jammed up then.
Oh, absolutely. The experts are basically saying expect a really crowded field, lots of teams fighting for those last spots right down to the wire. Final week stuff.
Okay, how about the American League? Is that picture any clearer?
No. Far from it, actually. The AL is kind of defined by this unusual level of parity right now.
Parity, meaning lots of teams are kind of bunched together.
Exactly. The analysis points to the Fangraphs playoff odds. Get this. 11 out of the 15 AL teams have at least a 20% chance of making the postseason right now.
11 teams with a legitimate shot. That's wild.
It really is. And that much parity, it totally changes the game for the trade deadline.
I guess so.
Well, instead of having, a few clear buyers and a few clear sellers, you've got this huge group in the middle where teams think, hey, we still have a shot.
Right. So fewer teams might be willing to sell off pieces early.
Precisely. It could make for a more complicated trade market, maybe slower to develop, as teams wait and see how things shake out closer to the deadline. It just makes the whole AL race feel way less certain than the NL.
Okay, so given all that uncertainty, how many of the current AL playoff teams do the experts actually think will hang on?
They're thinking maybe 3 or 4 of the current 6 stick around.
3 or 4, so a bit more turnover expected than in the NL. Which teams are they buying?
The ones the experts seem most confident about staying in the field are the Detroit Tigers, the New York Yankees, and the Seattle Mariners.
Interesting. Why those 3?
Well, the Tigers, they've been really impressive, right? They navigated all those outfield injuries, and their offense has been surprisingly potent, like 4th in MLB in runs per game.
Wow. Didn't realize they were scoring that much.
Yeah. The Yankees, they're expected to get even better, maybe get rotation help back soon, like Lewis Gill.
And Aaron Judge is playing like an MVP again.
Exactly. That definitely helps. The experts note his strong case. And Seattle, they could have their rotation fully healthy soon with Kirby back, Gilbert maybe coming back. Plus, they already made that move for Leody Taveras taking on salary.
Showing they're willing to be aggressive.
Right. Signals they intend to improve.
Okay, so if only 3 or 4 stay in, who are the teams currently outside the picture that the experts see making a push?
They're expecting 2 teams out of the group of the Red Sox, Astros, and Rangers to eventually get in.
Okay, 2 from that trio. Any others?
Yeah, plus they predict one of the other AL Central teams, so Minnesota, Cleveland, or Kansas City, will likely join the 3 division leaders in the playoff field.
So a Central team likely grabs a wild card spot too. What are the reasons behind those predictions? Like, why the Astros or Red Sox?
Well, some simulations the experts looked at suggest Houston probably overtakes one of the current AL Central teams, maybe Cleveland. The Red Sox, their run differential suggests they've been a bit unlucky. Maybe better results are coming. But they've got challenges, right? Bregman's big quad injury is a huge blow for Houston. Actually, that's a factor there, too. Boston needs pitching consistency. Maybe they need a spark from a prospect like Marcelo Mayer.
Right, call-ups could change things. And Kansas City.
Yeah, one expert specifically flagged the Royals as a team that could sneak in. And the analysis even mentioned how wild the AL is by pointing out the Angels. Remember they had that 8-game win streak?
Oh, yeah. They briefly looked relevant again.
Exactly. Shows how volatile things are over there.
Okay, that AL race sounds absolutely fascinating for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Let's shift to the extremes again. Win totals. Are we expecting a bunch of 100-win teams this year based on the analysis?
Actually, no. The outlook is maybe 0. Perhaps one team, tops, hits 100 wins.
0 or 1. That feels low. That'd be pretty rare, wouldn't it?
It would. Remember, last season, nobody hit 100 wins either. The Dodgers led baseball with 98.
Huh, forgot about that. So why so few dominant teams predicted this year?
Well, that parity we just talked about, especially in the AL, is a big reason. Even the top teams are facing tough competition night in, night out.
Makes sense.
And the Dodgers, those early dreams of 120 wins, the experts say that's long gone, mostly because of pitching issues. They lead the majors in bullpen innings pitched already.
Using the bullpen that much early is not ideal.
Not at all. And teams like, say, the Tigers, Phillies, Cubs, they might get close to 100, but the experts feel they're either in really tough divisions or still kind of growing into their best form, maybe hitting more rough patches than a truly dominant team would.
It was interesting, though, that one expert picked the Cubs to potentially finish with the most wins.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. One projection had the Cubs leading MLB with 99 wins.
99. Why them?
The reasoning included Pete Crow Armstrong's offense looking much better, maybe sustainable. They have prospect depth for pitching help, and, maybe crucially, they might benefit from the NL Central looking, a bit weaker than some other divisions.
Okay, interesting take. So, few 100-win teams. What about the flip side? How many teams are staring down 100 losses?
This is where the analysis gets, unfortunately, a bit more certain.
Or certain than many.
Experts are predicting 2, 3, possibly even 4 teams could lose 100 or more games this season.
4 teams losing 100. Wow. And who are the locks for that group?
Yeah, the Colorado Rockies and the Chicago White Sox are considered pretty much guaranteed 100-loss teams by the experts.
Okay, back to the Rockies again. Even within the 100-loss context, their situation is just off the charts bad, isn't it?
It really is. The experts keep emphasizing, they haven't even reached double-digit wins yet.
Still single digits in late May, early June.
Yeah, and they have way fewer wins than even the White Sox right now. So for Colorado, the question isn't if they lose 100, it's could they actually shatter that modern record of 121 losses?
The one the White Sox set just last year.
Exactly. Experts are throwing out numbers like maybe 128 losses. It's that dire. The analysis really stresses that the Rockies desperately need some kind of plan, some strategy to just start digging out over the next few months, build something for the future.
Just incredible numbers. Are there other teams likely to join the Rockies and White Sox in that 100-loss club?
Yeah, the Miami Marlins are seen as highly likely, especially because everyone expects them to sell off whatever talent they have left at the trade deadline.
Right, they'll probably get even worse after July.
Probably. The Pittsburgh Pirates are also mentioned as possibilities to hit 100 losses.
Okay. What about the Orioles, given how disappointing they've been?
Despite the struggles, the general feeling from the experts is that Baltimore probably avoids 100 losses. They'd need to go something like, 45-65 the rest of the way?
Okay. That seems manageable, even for a struggling team.
Yeah, the experts think they probably have enough talent to pull that off, even with the bad start.
All right, so let's try to synthesize all this. We've covered a lot. Based on the expert analysis at this Memorial Day checkpoint, what's the big picture of MLB right now? What are the main takeaways?
Okay, well, looking at the extremes, it's clear Memorial Day confirms we're watching something potentially historic at the bottom with the Rockies. Just levels of badness we rarely see.
Right. Unprecedented struggle there.
And then at the other end, we're likely heading for a season with very few truly dominant teams. Maybe zero, maybe one 100-win team. It reflects this real parity across a lot of the league that feels different from recent years.
Okay. Extremes at both ends, and the playoff races in the middle.
The National League seems clearer at the top, right? A solid group expected to make it, but that wild card race looks like it'll be super crowded, really volatile right down to the end.
Lots of teams fighting for those last spots.
Exactly. The American League, though, totally different story, defined by that surprising parity, so many teams still in the hunt.
Makes the AL race feel way less predictable.
For sure. And it's going to make that trade deadline really interesting, with so many teams potentially thinking they're still buyers or at least holding steady.
And those key disappointments we talked about.
Yeah, the Orioles stand out as the major shock. That collapse, especially in pitching, putting them in last place, just totally unexpected.
A huge fall from where they were.
Huge. And within that, the D-backs bullpen is flagged as a specific, really underperforming unit that's holding back a team that otherwise looked ready to contend.
Got it. So, considering everything the experts are pointing out here, both the historic lows with the Rockies and this intense parity and unpredictability, especially in the AL.
Yeah.
What does this Memorial Day check-in really tell you about how baseball seasons actually play out after the first couple of months? Like, how much can we truly trust these early standings as gospel when you have such wild extremes coexisting?